Welcome back and bear down. Thank you for all of you who have started following me and checking out my page. I just started this thing out. I'm a nerdy, analytical Bears fan, die hard for my whole life, and it's been a lot of fun for me. So those who haven't subscribed and liked, please do so. It helps me out, helps me grow this thing and give me some momentum to keep doing it. I like sharing this stuff with you, and I hope that you've enjoyed a little bit of it too. And they'll tell you what our team needs are, but the reality is we can figure this stuff out on our own. And I like to grade the players. I like to go through my own approach of what I think the team needs before I start doing my mock drafts. And then I'd go through a crazy amount of mocks and scenarios and just thinking things through. I like to play GM in my own head. And I'm sure a lot of you are that way too. So I'm going to let you follow me around for a minute. We'll try to be pretty concise on it. Right now, what I have in front of you is the end of season roster for the Bears, as well as the 16-man practice squad, 17-man with Roy Mbietica. I can't say his name, the international exemption guy that we had to tackle, who we actually signed to a future contract, if you hadn't noticed that. There are some players we've signed to futures contracts already. The futures contract basically just gives the team the rights to that player. So as we go into the offseason, it's giving us the right to the player. And there's some good ones that we re-signed to futures contracts off the practice squad. Micah Baskerville, linebacker, tight end Steven Carlson. For linemen, we got Jerome Carvin, Roy Mbietica, and Bill Murray. Defensive back, Adrian Collins. Defensive lineman, Michael Dwumfor and Daniel Hardy. And wide receiver, Simba Webster. So we signed some solid guys to the futures contract. Doesn't mean a whole lot. All that means is we're prepping some stuff for next offseason, bring them in. Doesn't mean they're going to make the 53-man, but it is nice to have that depth as we work to the offseason. So here we have our roster, and then I'm going to highlight. These are the ones that aren't under contract for next year. The blue are, the red aren't. We're going to go through all of this, but those ones in red are guys we need to make decisions on, what we're going to do with them, if we're going to let them walk. I'm going to take you through my approach real quick here. So first off, I'm going to evaluate my rookies. On the left, I have the PFF grades. Don't take that as set in stone. PFF is just a baseline for me. It's not the end-all, be-all. You'll see my grades don't line up with PFF on a lot of different things. So I grade all the rookies. This step one, there's nothing that's really going to change on this. Unless a rookie really stunk, then he's probably not going to make your 53-man last year. Kendall Williamson didn't stink. He was just a late-round pick, and there's not a lot of room for those types of guys. You see Quindell Johnson was an undrafted free agent who did beat him out, so it doesn't necessarily mean they stink, but Kendall Williamson was still on our practice squad. I assume he'll come back next year and be on the practice squad again. There's room for those guys to grow, so I like some of those guys on the practice squad. We had some guys that some fans fell in love with in the preseason last year, you saw, and some of them ended up going to other teams and making small impacts or ended up going back on their practice squads. So there's going to be some fluctuation there all the time, but we're going to focus on the main core guys. Darnell Wright, I thought, had a very solid year. The only reason I didn't give him an A is there's just that learning curve of the rookies. I thought he did a spectacular job, though. There's just a couple times he got beat, but I think he's one of those guys that's learning and growing every single play he does. 61 PFF grade was a little sloppy to me, I think. I think he's definitely above that. I gave him a B+. Same for Gervon Dexter. He probably deserves a B, but he came on really strong at the end of the year, and I love the progress he made. And he's a guy right now that's on that ascending trend that really, really looks positive. Tyreek Stevenson, same thing. He was more consistent through the year. The first 4 or 5 games, rough. It was really rough. And you had to think, I loved him and Juju Brents. Those are the two guys when we were drafting that I was really high on. And at that time, I was like, oh, maybe we should have taken Juju Brents. And now at the end of the season, after he won Player of the Week, and then after the end, that hit at the end of the first half where he knocked the receiver back so that forward progress wasn't done and the clock kept winding, that stopped the Packers from getting a field goal. Tyreek Stevenson is super intelligent. I freaking love Tyreek Stevenson. So anyways, Zach Pickens, I think, did all right. I think a lot of fans are more high on him than they need to be. He's one of those that you want to keep developing. You're definitely not by any means giving up on Zach Pickens, but he's not the bull force. He's not the guy that you have impacting immediately, and he's not Jalen Carter, guys. He's not. And there's room to grow at the defensive tackle position. As you'll see as we get later, if we're gonna replace some guys, we might need a little more strength in the defensive tackle position. Roshan Johnson, I thought, did excellent. There was a learning curve there too, but I see him taking more and more of a position in the running back room as next year comes along. Tyler Scott, I think a lot of fans had a very inappropriate expectation on him to come in and be a wide receiver 2 or 3. When you draft a guy in the 4th round, he's meant to be a wide receiver 3 or 4. He's progressing. He made some good progress. To me, he's more of a let's see how we can develop him with chemistry with Justin Fields in the offseason and see what we can bring around. I don't expect him to get higher than a wide receiver 3, but I really expect him to be our wide receiver 4. I don't see that changing much. Noah Sewell got a high PFF grade, but it's really an incomplete. He didn't get that much time. He did really well on special teams for those that weren't noticing. And when he did come in on as a linebacker, he did well. So I gave him a B. I think he's definitely a guy that we stick with, and we have no problem with Noah Sewell on the team. Terrell Smith, I think his PFF grade's a little high, especially after that last game. He got rocked when he put in the starting position. That game against the Packers was not good for Terrell Smith. I'm high on Terrell Smith. I like Terrell Smith, but to me, he's more potential than he is a starter right now. We all know Tyson Bagent. For a backup, I think he's super quality. 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. That doesn't tell the whole picture. So 57 is a little low for him. But for a starting quarterback, yeah, it's probably accurate. But for his role as a backup quarterback, I really like sticking with Tyson Bagent as our backup. Quindell Johnson, I gave him a C grade. He's not going to be your starter. We're going to need someone to come in at free safety. But anyways, there's my evaluation of the rookies. As we go on, here's our expiring contracts on offense. So these are guys we need to make decisions on. Number 1, Nathan Peterman. I think he served his purpose here. I think he was good for an experienced quarterback to be in the quarterback room. At this point, I think we need to roll with Justin Fields and Tyson Bagent and bring in a young rookie in a Jordan Love, in a Hendon Hooker type of situation where you're bringing them in to learn and see what you have from them. Good teams have good young quarterbacks developing underneath, even if we love Justin Fields. Deonta Foreman killed it for us on several games. He saved our bacon, to be honest. So Deonta Foreman is a guy that I would like to re-sign. I put nothing there because his market value is probably $3 or $4 million. I think we extend him a $3.5 million for a 2-year deal, see if he takes it, and I'm going to have as my expectation that he does take it. I've heard a lot of things about like going after a Derrick Henry, and I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to having a bruiser that we bring in to really open up the lanes and get some of those chunk yards and taking the pressure off. But I think Deonta Foreman serves the purpose of what we need. Darnell Mooney, I gave a D- grade. Something's off with Darnell Mooney, and the problem is his market value is going to be more than he's worth to us. He had a 1,000-yard receiving season, which makes him valuable to some teams, and he'll probably get some good offers. I'm not willing to pay him that. We need a solid wide receiver 2 and 3. So I'm not willing to have Darnell Mooney on another contract. You might not agree with me. I love Darnell Mooney. I just don't think he's a fit for the team anymore. Equinemius St. Brown, I have us extending him a league minimum offer, which is right around that $1.1 million for him. I don't see him being a deep threat for us to be a wide receiver 2, 3, 4. I see him as a 5 and a 6. I see him as a blocking wide receiver, and I think he has value there with his size. So I say we extend him a league minimum offer. Trent Taylor, we're going to draft some guys that have return potential. I don't see Trent Taylor in his minuscule size, his peanut body, being worth being on the team. I think he did well in his purpose. He didn't drop. Well, he did have one game where he had a few miscues. Joe Reed, he's been on the injured list. I don't see him coming back unless he does on the practice squad. Robert Tonyan, I think, did a good job for us. I think 50 is a rough PFF grade for him. I don't think it's accurate. I give him a C grade. I say we extend him a similar contract to what he has right now for depth, and we still draft a tight end. That's my approach, and that's why I have Mercedes Lewis not getting an offer. These are my opinions, guys, and I don't expect everyone to agree with them, but this is where I stand on my evaluations. Mercedes Lewis is just getting older as well. Lucas Patrick was a huge liability for us. Dan Feeney wasn't. an answer for us, but I think we can get him back on a league minimum contract, and I don't think he is anything more than a depth piece for us. With a guard center experience, have him as our fourth or fifth interior offensive lineman. So I have us offering him in the one as well. As we go to the defensive side, Yannick Ngakoue, horrible PFF grade and horrible in my opinion. He gave up so much on his side. When DeMarcus Walker replaced him, it was very clear and evident even a backup or rotational guy can do a better job than Yannick Ngakoue. You may not agree with me. You might be on the Ngakoue hype, but it doesn't lie, guys. We did better without him than with him, and he's not worth the price tag. He's gone. Justin Jones, I think he did a great job, but I think he benefited more from the Montez Sweat effect. He's getting older. I think we need the youth movement. We need to give Dexter more options, and I think we go out and sign a quality. There's some options we're going to get into in later videos with defensive tackles that are available. We've got Billings, we've got Dexter, we've got a backup in Pickens. I think we go out and get another guy. Rasheem Green was basically useless this year for us. Dylan Cole is solid on special teams. That's why I put yes, no. If we sign him back to a special teams contract, that's fine as a depth piece. I have no problem with that with how deep our linebacker core is. Jalen Johnson, to me, needs to be the priority. Excuse me. He was an A+. Jalen Johnson is a guy we need to focus on. I have us signing him for a $17.5 million contract per year for 4 years, and I think he'll take it. I think we're below that in what we're offering him. Once the coaches and the front office get set, that's going to be a priority, and I think you'll hear that contract being done well before the draft. Well, probably beginning of the offseason. So Josh Blackwell, I don't have us keeping him. There's better depth pieces. He didn't do a great job when he came in. I mean, he's been with us for a while, and I really like the depth that he did provide, but we're growing, and we have more depth now. We're not a practice squad team anymore. We're the Bears that are up and coming. Patrick Scales, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Our kicking unit is great. Give him a league minimum contract as well. Okay, so next I'm going to move on to our potential extensions and our possible cuts. So I don't want this to be a super long video, but I want to give you an insight of what I think on things. The priority right here is Justin Fields. I am on Team Justin Fields, making it work. Here's what you need to know about Fields' contract. It's a little over $3 million for this next year. Fifth-year option is $22, and the market value right now for an extension is $45. I say if I'm Ryan Poles, I go to Justin Fields and I say, hey, look, this team is still being built brick by brick. We realize we haven't gotten you all the pieces that you need. Sorry, I just realized the video wasn't on. Oh, well. This way you can listen to me yammer and see me if you want to. But for Justin Fields, it's $3 million, $22 million, and then $45 million. So I say we go to him and give him a one-year extension on top of the fifth year, and we say, hey, look, we're building this thing out. We've got solid draft capital. We've got a young core we're building around. We absolutely want to give you the extension, but we got to prove this works. There's still questions about you. What we want to do is we want to take your contract from the next couple of years. We're going to give you the one-year extension on it. We're going to level them out. We're going to give you a bunch of it up front. Very Jordan Love type of thing to do. Let's give you $70 million over the next 3 years. We have the cap space this year to do it, and we have the draft capital. We're going to be using that draft capital, and so we're not going to need to use all that cap space again. I know everyone says, oh, let's go spend it all. But the reality is we got things coming up. And if we front load it now with Justin Fields and give him, say, $22.5 million a year each year for the next 3 years with a big chunk of that guaranteed, he'll sign the fifth year and the extra extension year on top of it for cheap. That's still cheap, guys. $22.5 million with most of it guaranteed up front. That's a Jordan Love type of deal. That's something I think both Justin Fields and the Bears would be willing to do. So that's my key here on this one. That's what I think Ryan Poles should do. Justin Fields has not proven himself, but he's also been hindered in doing so. He has all the capability. He has all the weapons, all the weapon within himself. He has all the ability is what I'm trying to say. He has the natural talent. He has the number one pipe window throwing in the NFL. He knows how to zip a ball in there. He knows how to put the ball on a dime to DJ Moore in the corner of the end zone. He knows exactly what he's doing. So we do that, and I think that solves a lot of problems with all the speculation, all the other garbage. Get that done, then we can trade the number one pick. There's my solution for Justin Fields. Khalil Herbert, I love Khalil Herbert. Some of these decisions don't have to do with whether I like the player or not. It's where we are financially at the position in the time. So I say Khalil Herbert, we've got the extra year on him next year. We're going to let that ride out. Tevin Jenkins, same thing. He had a great year. I give him a B minus, but he's also injured quite a bit. And we do have issues at the guard position. And he did struggle in that Packers game. So I'm not going to extend him just yet. We're going to let the season play out very similar to what Jalen Johnson had go on, and I hope he balls out and then we end up paying him. He's going to be somewhere in the $10 to $11 million range. Right now, we already gave that to Nate Davis, and that's not really panning out on the Nate Davis front. You might disagree with that, but Nate Davis is not pulling his weight. Jack Sanborn, I'm okay with extending right now if he's willing to accept the home team discount. He's very valuable to me. Jack Sanborn is underrated by a lot of people, and he is the third member of that unit that really just lays the lumber on every play. So I like Jack Sanborn. If we can get a home team discount done, go ahead and get it done. All right, we're going to go down to the possible cuts. And here's what you need to know on the possible cuts. Cody Whitehair and Eddie Jackson have another year, but they're financially able to be cut. It's something that will work out for us. Here's why. I just threw these up here. This is Cody Whitehair's contract. If you look on here, the cap details, what you want to look at is the dead cap space. And I'll show if we cut them post June 1st, we're actually going to get even more value from it. I don't know if we will because we're going to want to be moving forward. We're going to want to move forward with things. But that $5.5 million out of the $18 million cap hit is what we'd be on the hook for if we cut him. So we're saving $13 million there by cutting Cody Whitehair. Let me get rid of that one. Oops. Hold on. All right. Technical difficulties. All right. Here's Eddie Jackson contract. Of his $13.25 million, if you look right below where I'm talking, down at the bottom on 2024, $13.25 million. We're on the hook for $4 million if we cut him. It's actually around $3 million if we wait post June 1st. And so we're saving $10 million. So between those two contracts, we're saving about $22 million. So add on top of our $61 million we have right now, another $22 million. That's $83 million we have. We can go out and pick up a defensive tackle. We can pick up a wide receiver. We can pick up a center. We can pick up a piece that we really, really need with these guys that are expiring. We can give Jalen Johnson his extension with these guys. I mean, the options are limitless, but they're really not solid contracts. Get rid of this one. Did it again. All right, hold on. Whereas with Nate Davis and DeMarcus Walker's contracts, they're so heavily loaded into this year, we can't get rid of them until next year. So I'm not going to go into the full breakdown of them, but we have to keep them. Now, DeMarcus Walker, I think, is valuable for us to keep because he's a solid rotational guy. His stats per snap were really, really solid coming into this year. With the extra put on him this year, he didn't perform as well, but with the Montez Sweat effect and when Yannick went out, he did step up, and I'm really happy with his role as a B+. Overall, I'd probably give him a C, but in the role that he played, I give him a B+. So I have us keeping him as well. All right, so let's go on. Next, the positional overviews. All right, I'm going to get rid of my mug for a minute. I'm going to make it really small. There we go. So here's our positional overviews of each position we have. At quarterback, this is where I've listed. We have a need. We need him. Okay, we have a need for another quarterback. Starting quarterback, I don't think so. Running back, since we've re-signed Deonta Foreman, we don't have a need there. All right, so we're going to move on to the next one. Go through these fairly quick. Wide receiver, this is where I think we have one of the biggest needs. DJ Moore is a true wide receiver one. We also need to bring in another wide receiver or two or three. I like Colin Johnson as a practice squad member. Just because I have him up here doesn't mean I have him as one of our 6 starters. I also didn't put Equanimeous St. Brown. I probably should have because I had us extending him a contract. I have him as a wide receiver 6, but we still need another 2 legitimate. We need 6, 7, 8 receivers that can compete and make it difficult at the end of the 53-man cutdown to be able to let someone go. We need that. We need competition. Iron sharpens iron. All right, on to tight ends. If we re-sign Robert Tonyan, we have a need for another one. We always need to have depth in that position. All right, moving on. All right, so here's one of my biggest needs. Dan Feeney is not a starting center. We don't have a starting center. Lucas Patrick has filled in and at times been okay, but he's not a starting center. There's a lot of options. Connor Williams was my favorite out of Miami. He got injured. He tore his ACL. He's not going to be available for the first 6 weeks of the season. I don't see him as the solution right now. You never know how he's going to come back from ACL injuries. I do like the center out of Vegas. I don't remember his name right now. It should be on the top of my head, but I'm not going to sit here and fight myself over it. I think we can sign a veteran and still draft a center in the draft because it's not a top-heavy elite. There's that guy up there. A lot of people refer to Cedric Von Fran as that guy. He's not to me. Graham Barton is getting a lot of notoriety. He might be. I'm still not in love with him. Jackson Powers Johnson is my favorite, but that's a round 2, round 3 pick. So we don't have the center that's glaringly out there. And last year's draft was the same. A lot of people wanted John Michael Schmitz, but I said from the start he's not a top tier guy. He's a guy you develop, and he hasn't had a spectacular season this year. We also need depth at guard. Look at our guard position. These are the PFF grades. Now, I don't give Nate Davis even a 53. I think Nate Davis had a horrible year. Jatari Carter also had a horrible year. We had Tevin Jenkins, and we had Cody Whitehair filling in. We need a guard in the draft. Even with Nate Davis's contract not being able to get rid of this year, we need to have someone that can go in and compete with him. If we carry his dead contract, it's just similar to carrying Cody Whitehair's dead contract. Sometimes you carry those dead contracts because you made a bad decision. It is what it is. Braxton Jones, I don't know why he's getting the hate, guys. I don't understand. He's played very well. I think we need depth. I don't think Larry Borum is a rotational tackle in the NFL. I would love to see us bring in a tackle in the second or third round that can compete with Braxton Jones for that starting job. And whoever doesn't get it, which would probably be the rookie right off the bat, but he could take over mid-year. That could be someone like Patrick Paul out of Houston. I really like Patrick Paul. There's some quality guys we can get in the second round at offensive tackle. So to me, we need a center, we need a guard, and we need a tackle. This is one of my biggest weaknesses. For us to start clicking on offense, we need to get 2 more wide receivers, and we need a solid line. And that's still not fixed yet, and it needs to be a priority this year. I wouldn't be shocked if Ryan Poles drafts Joe Alt. I wouldn't one bit not be shocked. A lot of you guys might be, but those 3 wide receivers at the top are all wide receivers in any other year. And if we pass on Marvin Harrison Jr. to get Joe Alt, and then we select Romo Dunze at number 9, wouldn't shock me one bit. We've still got a wide receiver 1 caliber guy, and we got a tackle that bookends just as a solid elite offensive corner ends the 2 tackles. I mean, that would be spectacular. So nothing's going to shock me with Ryan Poles as long as it's a position of need. All right, we're going to move on to the defense. Right there, you can see we got Montez Sweat, we got DeMarcus Walker. Dominique Robinson, to me, is a liability. He does not play spectacular when he comes in. They're letting his rookie contract ride out, and I'm okay with that. He's just not making the steps that I think he needs to take to be a rotational guy. I think he needs to be a bench warmer. I think we need to bring in a defensive end in the draft, and I would really like it to be Jared Verse, Leatu Latu, or Dallas Turner. One of those 3 guys are 3 guys that I'm comfortable plug and playing right away. DeMarcus Walker has done very well, and he's a good rotational guy, but I don't see him as a starter. And then a defensive tackle as well. And then another defensive lineman, if we get rid of Dominique Robinson or just for depth, that's a need as well. All right, so for linebacker, you could put Dylan Cole back in place there. You could pick another one off of the undrafted free agents or deep in the draft. We don't have late round draft picks this year. But to me, so I put need there, but really it's not a high need. We could just re-sign Dylan Cole and be very comfortable with that because he does a great job on special teams. I'm going to move on to the secondary. Jalen Johnson, assuming we sign him, that's not a high need. If we don't sign him, that is a very high need. Terrell Smith, to me, is not up to snuff for a backup that can come in and play starter minutes. He needs to develop some more. He's still young. He was just a rookie last year. But Tyreek Stevenson, see these PFF grades. This is my point. The PFF grades, they're not set in stone. They're not the end all be all. This is a baseline. Tyreek Stevenson obviously had a much better year than Terrell Smith and played much better ball than Terrell Smith. PFF just has their own way of doing things, but it gives you a baseline. I'm not comfortable with Elijah Hicks. He did all right. But we need, if we cut Eddie Jackson, that free safety position is an extreme need for us. And there's some guys in the draft that really fit that well. Number 1, Tyler Nubin is who I would target, but I really think he's going to go at the end of the first round, probably to someone like the Eagles. And then Cam Kitchens, who was last year's spectacular standout guy. He'll probably go in the second round, and if we can trade back, that's why I want to trade back, is to get a free safety, to get a guard, to get a center. Those second-round picks that we can acquire, man, that would be so valuable. And then this is taking into consideration that we re-sign Patrick Scales to a league minimum as well here. All right, so organizing the team needs. This is not the order of which I think we should draft them, because some of them are replaced. Like number one, our biggest need is a center. We need a commander-in-chief of that offensive line that's just in charge and can dominate. You see what it does with other teams that have an outstanding center. So that's our number one need. But to draft them number one would be a waste of a draft pick, because centers right now are not projected to go until the second, third round, and it just doesn't fit that way. But this is the order of what I think we need, not where we should draft. Number one's a center, two's a wide receiver, three's a free safety, then a defensive end, then a guard, another wide receiver, then a defensive tackle, offensive tackle, then a backup quarterback, a tight end, linebacker, cornerback, and another wide receiver. So this is how I organize my thoughts into what the Bears need, what we should go after. But then you have to analysis where they go in the draft. And I did another video on that as well. So I just threw it up here. So this is old. This was mid-season. I'm going to do another one of these, but this kind of shows the Bears' needs and where these needs would go. And my needs have changed, my needs analysis. So it's off. This is an old one, but I'm just showing you what I do, and I'll do another one as I update this. But it shows where those players are projected to go and where we could realistically pick them. So, like, for example, the yellow one, the defensive end, that's still pretty accurate. Those three defensive ends I talked about, Liatu Latu, Jared Verse, Dallas Turner, all three of those guys right now are projected to go around that 8 to 20 range. Okay? And on this, I had 10 to 19, which is a little, and I had us at the 10th pick, and now we're at the 9th pick. But you can see that's where that's going to fall into. So that's not going to be a guy that we take with our first overall pick. That's a guy we're going to consider with our second overall pick. So, anyways, I got a lot more to bring to you. This is what I do to do a rundown of where I think the Bears organization is and what they need. This is my organized team needs. I'm going to bring you more as I go through the offseason. I break all this stuff down in a nerdy way. Hopefully you enjoy some of it. If you do, please like, please subscribe. I appreciate you checking it out. Let me know your thoughts, where you think our team needs rank, and what we need to go after this offseason. It's going to be one heck of an offseason for Bears fans. We're going to have a really good time. I went to the draft when it was in Vegas. I'm really considering going in Detroit because this is such a big year for us. This is going to be fun. I can't wait to see how it all unfolds. Hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Here we go. Dak Prescott. All right, bear down. Until next time.